I'm Terry, and this is Tea with Teri, where we talk about thoughts, emotions, and actions. Today, I want to discuss the thought around this phrase that I know you have most likely heard of, and that is one day at a time. So, I want to introduce my thoughts around one day at a time and invite you to explore your own thoughts and perhaps even, if it's helpful, change your perspective, which is something I recently did. So, the backstory for me is that when I stopped drinking, I didn't go one day at a time. Instead, I did the exact opposite. I chose to lean into not drinking forever. And with my personality, the way that I'm wired, that was really helpful. And it helped me sort of shut down the noise in my brain. And so when I think of one day at a time, for me, in 2015, when I stopped drinking, one day at a time felt daunting. It felt like I was going to have to keep focusing on not drinking every single day for the rest of my life. And I didn't want that. And so I chose instead to really lean into this idea of not drinking forever. And because that really worked for me, and because that was my journey, I think that I have been guilty of denying the power of one day at a time and not really exploring what it meant for me and perhaps what it means for other people to do things one day at a time. And so I am always open to shifting my perspective, learning and growing. And I want to invite you also to explore what one day at a time means for you. So if you were to Google, like I did today, the origin of the saying one day at a time, you're going to find that it's in very closely linked to the 12 steps, the big book, AA, as in Alcoholics Anonymous. And so that story of one day at a time, that phrase of one day at a time, that image of one day at a time has been linked to 12 steps. And, it's been shared that Bill W., the author of the big book and the founder of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, was very much wanting people to stop trying to stop drinking for forever and or even just for a temporary time span, and instead focus on the next 24 hours and the next 24 hours and the next 24 hours. And that has been very helpful for many people. And so let's talk about why looking at one day at a time might be helpful for you. So I've talked before about the idea, or I talk a lot in my coaching about staying anchored to the present moment. Because what happens is when we go into the past, and we are often guilty of ruminating and reminiscing and maybe falling into beating ourselves up about things that we did or things that happened. We can even get stuck in kind of a victim mentality. And so staying in the past doesn't really help us on this journey to make change in our life, positive change. And then if we go the other direction and we go into the future, we're often caught up in worry and planning and motion versus action. And so where we really want to spend our time and where we can affect the most change, in fact, the only place we can take action is in the present moment. And so if I, in my own brain, shift one day at a time to just staying present, that opens up an entirely new meaning. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be hyper focused on thinking about not drinking day after day after day. Instead, with the right lens and perspective, I can explore the thought of just knowing that one day at a time can look like allowing my brain and my emotions and my actions to be represented today, to be focused on the present. And I think for me, that's a shift. So I'm so curious if you explore this thought. Have you really thought about one day at a time? Is it something you've used in your own life, perhaps on your alcohol-free journey? Does it feel powerful and affirmative? Or does it sort of put you into a place where you're questioning the one day at a time, that you want to be a little bit more broad? And if that's you, like it was me, I want to invite you to think about, how can we stay anchored to the present, and how might one day at a time help us anchor to, again, where we can have the most impact, which is today. All right, that's T for Terry for today. I hope you enjoyed this thought exercise, and I'll see you next week.